Okay, so about to take my very first proper outdoor photos with the new Canon RF 100-400 non-L lens, the f5.6 to f8. I had the EF 100-400, as many of you will already know, and I absolutely love that lens. It remains my favourite lens pretty much of all time. But it's pretty heavy. I don't need such a heavy lens. I certainly don't need a fast lens for shooting landscapes. So when the announcement came out about the RF 100-400, I thought I got to give this thing a go. And after I read the specs and studied a few of the early images, I was impressed, and I thought it's worth taking a punt. So I sold the EF 100-400, and now I have this. Let's see how it goes. You'll notice that I'm taking most of my shots here handheld. So if I've got a face like a bucket of offcuts from a Jewish ritual, I've had about 3 hours sleep, and I'm still recovering from my second Pfizer shot, which kind of left me feeling a bit dopey. Oh, we got some llamas. I have to take some photos of you guys. You'll notice that I'm shooting handheld at the moment, and that's because I think a lot of people are going to buy this lens to shoot handheld. They're not going to stick it on a tripod because it is so light and it's so manoeuvrable, it's so chuckable. So the temptation is to shoot handheld. And so at the moment I'm shooting at about 400 ISO, f8, 400th of a second. So just taking the really safe route with shutter speed. But I might try a few shots. Oh, here comes the sun. I might try a few shots on the tripod at higher apertures. Whew, that's bright. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I'm going to take a variety of shots with this thing. This is an area that I shoot in quite a bit, but usually a bit further down. But I'm going to shoot some individual trees, close-ups of grass, some cows in the distance. Then I'll walk up the hill a bit and I'll shoot some of those llamas. I got some really nice shots of the llamas a little while ago with my new RF 70-200 f4. So I'm very keen to see how this lens performs on the same subject. But let's photograph a few more trees and see how we go with that. Well, so far focus seems to be very snappy, very fast. It locks on quickly. Good thing too is with this you've got a very short minimum focus distance, so you can almost use it as like a half macro. So I'm going to get a couple of shots around here. In fact, there's a flowers, there's a flower right there. So right now in this overcast light at f8, I'm doing 400th of a second. I'm getting ISO 500, which is fine. Really anything with an R5 up to ISO 6400, you know, you can barely see the difference. It's really good. Sun's popping out a bit now, so ISO 250 at f8, 400th of a second. That'll be interesting. Alright, let's have another go at that. Alright, so I'm shooting a flower that's about a metre away on the ground here at 400 mil. Let me get the focus thing up there. At f8, so really testing the limits of shallow depth of field at its widest aperture setting. Oh yeah, that is pin sharp. Yeah, that looks good. That looks really good. Alright, sun's out, so I'm going to shoot some more of these trees, even though this is about the worst light for me to shoot trees. Let's go and see some llamas, shall we? Why not? Alright. Hello. Aren't you pretty? Got such beautiful eyelashes. Surprised the camera didn't mind plucking out eyeballs even with hair over their eyes. You're so cute. Lamas are such funny little creatures, aren't they? probably looking at me and thinking, those humans are funny looking creatures. Alright, so I've taken a couple of shots of the llamas, some close-ups of flowers, a couple of shots of trees in the distance. Now let's try it on a tripod and see how this goes when we stop it right down to, say, I don't know, f16, f22, that kind of thing. Do some longer exposures, especially since we don't have a tripod collar on this. Let's see how that performs. As is always the case with my reviews, this is very non-scientific. I'm not a big fan of... I like watching detailed reviews of equipment just because I'm a bit nerdy, I'm a bit of a geek. But in terms of its real-world application, you know, technical specs beyond the basics don't really bother me all that much when it comes to lenses. I figure that very few people make rubbish anymore. It's the same with cars, you know. Almost no one makes a crap car anymore. And it's the same with cameras and with lenses, you know, they are so much better than what I ever had to use when I was shooting professionally, when I first started shooting professionally 40 years ago. Or 35 years ago. So I'm very happy with whatever I have now. But anyway, I'm crapping on it, as I always do. I've been shooting a variety of shots, different subjects, almost everything at 400mm, because that's what I'm most curious about, is how it performs at 400mm, because I've got a 70-200. I might shoot at 300, you know, somewhere in between 200 and 400 sometimes, but typically I like to go ultra long or ultra wide, or for a nice standard perspective with a 50. You know, if I have to go somewhere in between for the sake of composition and cropping, then so be it. But I tend to prefer to operate at those extremes: the wide end, the ultra wide, ultra long, or standard sort of perspective with a 50mm. But anyway, I've been shooting almost all the shots at 400mm. Some of them from f8 right up to f45. We'll see what they look like. Probably very soft at the narrow end. Some in sunlight, some in shadow. Some with high ISO, some with base ISO. So there's quite a few to go through already. I'll have a look at those when I get back to my studio. Go through them, put together a selection, and you'll see them at the end of this video. And then, rather than me tell you what I think of them, although I probably will to some extent, you know, you can be the judge. Anyway, I think a few more shots, given that this is not the ideal time to be shooting, and then I'll head back home and start looking at these photos. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they look like. Oh, incidentally, with it sitting on the tripod like this without a tripod collar, it's fine. The lens is so light that you don't notice it. It's just like putting a 14-35 on there, or a 70-200 f4. It's no different. In fact, this thing's probably lighter. I don't know. I must check. It feels lighter than the 70-200. Actually feels lighter than the 14-35 as well. But anyway, it's fine. So you don't need to worry about that. Alrighty, I think that's about it for me. So what have I got? I've got some close-up shots of flowers. I've got some video of it zoomed into 400, so you can see what that's like. Shots of llamas. Eye detect was very fast. Focus is very fast. No problems at all there. I don't see any difference in how this focuses compared to my 2L lenses. It's really, really good. I was amazed how it picked up the eye of a llama from a long way away. Even though they've got lots of fur over their eyes and big eyelashes, it still just plucked out that eye no problem. So that's really, really cool. We've got a bit of haze in the distance, so the shots that I've taken way off over there, they're not going to be all that flash. They're probably going to be a little bit soft and hazy. But I might take a couple more before we go, but I think I've got enough. I think I've got enough. Let's get back to the studio and we'll have a look at the images. Alrighty. Okay, so what do I think of this thing, the RF 100 to 400, 5.6 to 8, now that I've had a couple of days to use it? Well, I'm thoroughly impressed, I really am, and I've just come from the EF 100 to 400 L lens, so my expectations for this were quite low, but really, the level of sharpness, detail, contrast and colour rendition, everything, all the important things. AF is very fast, eye detect works extremely well. Macro works brilliantly. You can get up really nice and close to things, as you'll have seen in the video. It's a very impressive lens, so I'm really happy with it. And now there's a car coming, so I have to pause and wait. Okay, so this lens, yes, I'm very impressed with it. I love it. I'm definitely going to be using this an awful lot. And because it's so light, I'm going to have it with me all the time, which I really like. I'm very happy about that. You'll have already seen the images of this lens, and I'm pretty sure that if you buy this, you're not going to be disappointed. Somebody asked me to hurry up with this review so that they could decide whether or not to buy this or get the 100 to 500 because they want to shoot wildlife. And look, to answer that question, I think you could very happily get away with shooting wildlife with this. I haven't shot fast-moving subjects with it, so I don't know what it's like with birds, but I know that the eye detect and the autofocus are very snappy, so I can't really see why there would be an issue using this to photograph bird life. Yes, I'm very happy with this. The stabilization is great, autofocus is fast, color, contrast, sharpness, they're all excellent. You won't be disappointed. If you're in the market for a quality long-range zoom lens in the Canon RF ecosystem, you will not be disappointed with this. Definitely go get it.